Welcome back to the Context Coaching Podcast. We are joined today by Darnell Harris, Athletic Director at Mission College Prep in San Luis Obispo, California. The second most beautiful place in California behind the Monterey Peninsula, where I am. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's dive in, shall we? Let's talk about how you ended up doing what you do, being an athletic director, coaching, the whole journey. Take us all the way back
Sure,
and walk us through the steps along the way.
sure. First, I'm going to give credit. I'm going to be the assistant athletic director. Kevin Hitchen is our athletic director, but it goes back for me to coaching. Went to Mission Prep, graduated in 91, and I started coaching as an assistant coach very shortly after that. After I graduated, I stayed and played football at Cal Poly. I stayed on to help the basketball team when I was an assistant coach to Tim Culp. That's got me started. Then he decided he was going to resign. I put my name in the hat to be the head coach, put my name in the hat with a guy named Bob Cantu, who some of you might be familiar with in the coaching room. I got the head job. I kept Bob was my assistant, or excuse me, my JV coach for 1 year. And then he moved on to Morro Bay. Then obviously I was the head coach. Then I'm going to give you a little bit of my history coaching tree here. I like to brag on that a little bit. Then my first guy
Well,
I hired
that's
was
important. It helps us understand how you evolved into the assistant athletic director.
It does. So my next guy I hired as JV coach was a guy named Ryan Weisenberg. And he worked for me, coached JV for me. Then he went on to be a grad assistant at Cal Poly, student assistant. Then he got a job as an intern and a grad assistant with the Lakers. Then he ended up coaching with the Sparks. Yeah, it gets pretty good. Coached with the Sparks, coached boys at South Pasadena High. Then he went on to coach Mater Dei. So he's got three rings with the Lakers and 2 rings with the Sparks in his bag. He went on to coach with the Houston Comets and a lady named Charlene. Fast forward to that, my assistant coach there with the head coaching team was a guy named Tom Mott, who went to school with me and graduated with me in 1991. Tom Mott then became the athletic director here at Mission Prep. Had some things come up. Now he's the athletic director at St. Joe's, and he's also the basketball coach there. All that being said, in the meantime, there was a young man who's by the name of Terrence Harris, who was a player here, also might be related to me. He's now currently our men's basketball coach for the last 18 years and has over 300 wins here at Mission College Prep. That is my brother, but basically he then became the head coach at Mission. So the coaching tree has been, since this school has reopened in 1983, a gentleman by the name of Tim Culp was the head coach. Then it was myself. Then it went to Tom Mott, and now it's been my brother, Terrence Harris. So that is the legacy of men's basketball here at Mission College Prep, with proud of. So that's almost 40 years of, is that right? Yeah, 40 years of basketball that's been taking place of this attached to these 4 gentlemen. So that goes without saying. In all that time, I was the head coach from 94 through 99. There was a gentleman named Jade Coates, who was the athletic director at the time. When I went to school here as well, I was one of his TAs. And long story short, I used to do some of the scheduling in my TA period for Coach Coates. So that's how the basis of all this kind of gets started with me here. I also was the quarterback on the football team, played safety. So I ended up also, when I was in college, helping out. When I got done, I would help out with football as well. So when I was coaching here, I also still helped coach football and called some offensive plays. Fast forward to that, I ended up opening up a restaurant, or being the GM at a restaurant here called Firestone Grill, which opened in 95. So I was doing both.
Which is an all-time destination location if you're going to San Luis
If
Obispo.
you're going to slow, you probably stopped in Firestone. If you've ever done it in the past 27 years or 29 years, because I've been gone for 2, I'm sure I've come across you or seen you, because I was there pretty much every day except for Sunday for 27 straight years. So I did that. As time got up, you can't do a lot of those things. Can't do both. Run a restaurant as successful as that and coach basketball. One thing had to go. So I had a small family, started a family. So I went into the restaurant business, did that for 27 years, had the opportunity. Story gets a little crazy here. Mr. Ryan Weisenberg, who was my JV coach, is now the director of advancement and enrollment at Mission Prep. He also went on for a while to coach at Pepperdine University. He coached overseas in New Zealand. He's had a great coaching career himself. He became back to Mission College Prep from Pepperdine. Always was trying to get me to come back and join. Opportunities worked out. I became the director of alumni relations and director of football operations to help coach football. So that's how it all came back to me. So I started coaching again with Coach Schuster, a guy named Coach David Schuster, who's our football coach. Long story short, I got the knack. I have 4 lovely daughters. 3 of them have played a lot of softball. My middle one, Kyra, who we call Mini Me, when they were playing all-star games, I went to a few tournaments and the coach there's another local guy from St. Louis, and he said to my wife, Dick, Dick Jim was his name. He said, "Are you telling me your husband is Darnell Harris, the Darnell Harris that went to Mission Prep?" And she was like, "Yeah." I said, "Was like, and why is he not helping us coach?" That's up for you guys. That ain't got nothing to do with me. Long story short, they dragged me back in the little softball world. So I started coaching some all-star softball, really got my knack again, my feet wet again in that coaching aspect. When my daughter was coming to Mission Prep, helped out to get with a guy named Sean Reed to help get softball brought back to life here. And that's been the kind of go of it. So my my role here at Mission Prep now is the director of alumni relations, also help with director of, like I said, football ops, help with that, player development there. And I also do softball ops. So those are my departments that I'm deal. That's what I head up and do. This year has been a great year for me personally. Our athletic director, Kevin Hitchen, used to help coach basketball. He did this year. During basketball season, I'd be more the gym administrator guy. This year, my brothers, I would love to have you on the bench. This year, I got the opportunity to coach again with my brother as his assistant coach. So a little long story that makes this thing kind of crazy is his first year coaching, when he first came back at the restaurant, he didn't have an assistant. So I still worked for him. And people were like, how the heck is that going to work with the older brother and a younger brother? And I made it real clear. I said, listen, I know what I like out of my assistant coaches. So when we get off the bus, I'm his assistant coach. I carry his bags. I carry his suits. I make sure he's got his pins. I do everything that I want somebody to do for me. When we get back on the bus, I'm the big brother. And it has worked out tremendous for us. It is great. I had a really good time coaching with him this year.
Oh, fantastic stories. So many things that I wanted to interrupt and talk about. But those that are listening, as he mentioned, Terrence, previous guest on the pod, we'll link it in the show notes. You should go ahead and go back and listen to that great episode. And just because, why not, Darnell? Coach and I are pretty tight. We talked during the season, and I don't know if it was coincidence that you're back on the bench and he's talking about how this year was really a struggle. But yeah, you finished great. You made a deep run in the playoffs, so it all water under the bridge. But now that I connect two and two, it makes sense. So let me do this, because if I got the dates right, you graduated in 91 and you were the head coach in 94.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Here's why that's perfect, because now as you're doing more athletic administration, the intention of this pod, when I started it, was to create a digital database of mentorship, right? So you're coming over as a 22-year-old, basically. Hey, I'm going to be the head coach, which, of course, at that age, we all think we know more than we do. But what I always ask is, what did you realize right away that you needed to figure out, where you realized you didn't know what you thought you knew?
I realized real quick that you I can think that I know everything. I had first to get the respect of the kids because I'm just a little bit older than them. So that was a big deal. I relied on just asking a lot of information. Like I said, I brought up Jay Cohen. So I was in his office quite a bit, just asking him. He'd been coaching for a long time, different tidbits to help me reflect and to get the kids that I felt like I could relate to them, but I just wanted to make sure that they understood to see me as in an actual parent figure, but I really wanted me like a bigger brother was how I tried to approach it because the age was so close. So I think I developed some pretty good relationships with the kids, which helped me grow. Now, in doing that, you're dealing with some parents who think that I'm just a little younger kid. So I had to tell them and show them some different things, let them know that I was really taking this seriously and taking this to the core. I've been an assistant coach for a while. Parents always want to think that their kids are the best, and I understand I got kids too. I try to be realistic, but I decided back at that early age in my life that I filmed every practice. So if people asked me questions or had something to say, I said, if you want to come over and watch the film with me, now it was a big old tape back then, but let's come over and let's do it. I'm open to do that. I was early in my marriage. I got married in 95, and my wife said, You guys can do whatever you want, but don't call my house before 8 o'clock in the morning. There were some rules that she put on. So those things helped me. So that's how it helped for me.
Great. And if I remember correctly, I think Terrence told me he was playing on the team that you were coaching.
Terrence played while I coached. That is a correct statement. I was his head coach.
Talk a little bit for people that may be in similar situations where you're a parent, your kid's on the team, you got a sibling on the team, you got somebody in the program. Talk about how you navigated that then, but more importantly, what you would do differently 27,
So
29 years later if you were in that position again.
100%. I was pretty tough on my brother. Uh, I probably held him to a higher standard than I held everybody else. I knew that he could actually play in college if he put his mind to it. Um, when I left here and I went to Cal Poly myself, basketball is my love, but I'm a much better football player than I am basketball player, talent wise. Um, there's 1,000 of us that can play basketball. Football is a kind of a special deal, and I felt like my gifts are pretty good. I didn't love football as much as I love basketball. I'm not gonna blow smoke up anybody's deal. I don't think I would have made the NFL. Could I have played Canadian football at that time, which was big, and made a living? Absolutely. Did I love football enough to do that? Heck no. Now, if you had flipped that and said I could have played in some other division basketball and been able to do that, I would have given everything I could to try to do that. But I knew that I didn't love football that much to continue that. So I had a knee injury in football. That was when the cot came to me. And I think God does things for miraculous reason. I could have persevered and tried to get back in there. Bottom line is, I wouldn't have been as happy as I am now. That's when Mr. Cole came and said he's going to retire. If I would have done that, I wouldn't have been able to apply to be the head coach. I think God works everything out for a reason. Back to your original question, one thing that I would do different is I was pretty hard on my brother because I thought he could be successful. I was very difficult on him. Now, part of him says that he understands that now, but that's a hard relationship when you're trying to do that as a young man. So I can give you one story that my wife is going to kill me. When we started this, our first apartment was directly across the street. Now, Mission Prep, we got a small gym. There was a time where we'd always have the gym windows open. And there were some kids, and I had coached some of these kids in 8th grade as well. And then I was sitting, so now I'm the head coach as they're now in high school. Long story short, I think it was after practice, my brother and I got into some heated discussions. Everybody knew where Mr. Harris was. They walked across the street and said, "You need to probably come across the street. Coach D and T are going at it right now." So she had to come in and tell us to stop yelling at each other. Terrence will probably tell you more what exactly that drill was, but there was something that I thought he didn't do well enough or give enough effort. So all that being said now, I think it's very key and keen in this situation for you to understand when you're coaching a sibling that you have to treat them just like anybody else. And it's a hard thing to do because obviously at some vantage point, I'm not gonna say that they mean more to you, but they're just a different relationship with you. One of the things that I've learned from that is, and that was really my career, is I want to try to establish that relationship with every kid that I got and make them actually feel like they are my son or my brother and have that kind of a bond. For me, one of the biggest things, and we'll talk about mentorship, is I had some kids that I thought were great kids. I wanted to play more than some of their assistant coaches. I had another assistant coach named Larry McCoy who's played and done some stuff that's local. Anyhow, there's been a few kids along the way who years later would come back to me at Firestone in the restaurant and say, "Hey, coach, I know it's a pain in the butt, but I want to thank you for the discipline and for what you instilled in me back then. I didn't realize what it was now, but now that I have a family, or now that I'm doing this in my career, I see what you were trying to do, and I really appreciate you." So as a coach, to me, that is the best thing because you want to put the X's and O's, but what is it going to take place as a man or a woman later in life that you can give them that they're going to help to succeed in society? That's the long version of that story. I'd probably like to say, just trying to get back. So if I had to do it again, just make sure you treat everybody on the same level playing field and have as much passion for everybody as you do for real kid. And it's a tough deal. I'm sorry.
No, you are 100% correct. And one of the things since I became the athletic director that I've tried to hold as close as I can is my baseline is I don't want parents coaching their kids. Now,
Correct.
that said, there are situations where you don't have another choice and there's some value to be added. And so you have to, I actually have conversations out in front to be like, hey, we need to talk about what this is going to be like, because ultimately, regardless of how good you do this, the optics are different no matter what. And it's ultimately, we have to take all that into consideration. So that's why I was curious about that. And the other thing I would say is what I learned as my daughters came through here, both played softball similar to yours, both at Cal Poly, actually. One's a junior, one's a freshman now. But we have an advisory program. And I would really struggle when my advisees would ask me something and I would give them advice and they'd go do whatever. And it's, yeah, I did the best I could. I tried to lead them to water. And then when I would give the same advice to my children and they wouldn't do it, it used to like just really grate on me, probably similar to coaching your kid. And I had to get to a place where it's like, why do I get so upset when they don't do what I'm suggesting? But when my advisees don't, I'm like, whatever. And when I was able to marry that at the end of the day, once your kids become high school kids, all you're really doing is giving information and they're going to make decisions and you can't dictate it anymore. And once I was able to turn that page, it made that relationship better. Even though I wasn't coaching them in high school, I still had to be on campus with them. And so, to the point of what you're saying, how do you treat them with the same approach that you're using for everybody else, even though it's emotional for you? So, football, softball, basketball, how would you say those cross pollinate from a coach's perspective? How are you taking from one and applying it to the other, especially since you took a long break, started as softball coach again, and now you're back at basketball?
I would, for us here at Mission, the part of this is the culture from the football to the basketball. I think one of the things that's been asked of me, probably from Coach Schuster and Coach Harris, is because of my life experiences. I'm trying to do a lot more with the actual reaching out to the kids as opposed to the X's and O's so much. So it's that connection. I'm trying to uplift the kids and give them the proper perspective and help guidance and understanding of things that I've experienced and things that I see. I see talent pretty well in both of those different fields, probably from my experiences of playing. Now, how I think that has helped me is by coming back into the world of softball. I didn't know softball. So when I went into that dugout, I told him, I said, I'm not your softball coach. Now, I ended up helping with base running because I had a little speed and could see different things, help doing the outfield and just to know like where they're playing, their depth was. But my main focus in the dugout was just, coach would say, I just want you to keep the girls up and keep them positive. So I think that is what has correlated a lot for me in my current position is that's the basis of what I'm trying to do is I always believe there's some good in everything and in every situation. Now, some situations take a little bit more in-depthness and to go find those, but it's always there. You just got to go find it. So that's what I try to do. And each and every one of these kids that I come in contact with has something special, a special gift from God. So it's just up to me to find out what that is and try to bring that out of each of them and basically let them see that in themselves because they got to see that to have the confidence in themselves that'll help propel them to be the best player that they can be. And that's all as you want is for them to give the best and to be the best that they can be. So,
Yeah, I would echo that. As you're shifting more to that approach, you're not necessarily ignoring the X's and O's if you became the head coach again. You've just realized that the emphasis on relationship and the emphasis on what leaves with those kids beyond the time they spend with you is what's really going to help them excel in life.
yes, I would echo that sentiment exactly. Yes.
So, on that note, when you talked about culture a little bit, what would you say is the best thing that you've observed in any of the programs at the school that were you to become head coach again, you would make sure that you implemented that in your program? And it can be a tangible, it can be an intangible, but things that, again, as a 22-year-old taking the reins versus us now in our 50s, or me 49, you're 52, or whatever it happens to be 51.
51, 51. Don't give me too old. I'm getting there.
I was doing the math in my head. So, what do you think you've seen? What are the best things you do in your programs at Mission Prep, or even other ones you've been involved with that it's on your list of, hey, when I'm in charge again, this is what we're doing?
I'm in a unique position that we're a Catholic Christian high school. God can be acknowledged. So that's number one. One of the biggest things that I've seen, especially from Coach Schuster when I came in, even when I was away not coaching, I would still come and watch my brother play, this, that, and the other, watch his teams. I know who he is as a person, individual, and I know him. When I came back and started hanging out with Coach Schuster, and I saw some things, I go, okay, I'm starting to understand why kids, your program is where it is now. and how the football program is now on the rise, because they both are Christ-centered men who are trying to present and make Christ-centered men. So that was a key to me to see that. Now, in those X's and O's and doing things with that, they are making sure that the people that they have around those gentlemen reflect the same concept and values that they have. As a coach, if I were to come back and do it again, my assistant coaches, those people that I have surrounding me, would duplicate and mirror the values that I have, because you can't relate that to these kids, no matter what it is, X's and O's, if you're getting something that's coming different in contradiction from anybody inside your own program. So that's one of the biggest things that I see for me. Number two, they're both detail oriented in very different ways. It's not necessarily how much information you can give these kids. It's what can you give them that they can perfect, that they can become second nature to do this every time over and over. So it really becomes second hand. You hear that a lot, but as a youngster, if you're confident and secure in knowing what you're doing and don't question what you're doing, your reaction and how you operate on the court or on the field or on the playing surface is incredibly different. And as an older person who's been around and seen these now, you realize how valuable that really is. It's not how much knowledge that I can have as a coach and draw up X's and O's. I can draw plays up all day. If they don't execute them, what good is that? You have to find a way for them to be able to execute and feel confident in what they do. And nowadays, I feel like back in the day when I was 22, I just told a kid, this is how you're going to do it because this is the way I said you're going to do it. Now you got to tell a kid the why. And they got to see the why. So they're actually questioning you and making sure that you actually know what you're doing. But once you can show them the why and they believe in you, man, they'll run through the wall for it. Which is an old thing that we used to have, but I think it's completely different now.
Yeah. I think it's wrestling with being appreciative of them wanting to know the why versus that's not what we used to do, right? Back in the it's because I told you versus no, here's why, because this person's going to slide and then this person, and this is where the gap is going to be.
I agree. It is, and it is different. The why is the inquisitiveness that they actually have an answer and want to know why. They're yearning for more knowledge and they want you to give that to them.
I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but I'm curious as we're talking. This isn't something I spent a ton of time on, but what, I guess, connectivity do you think applies here as these kids are now more curious about that? Has to do with when you and I grew up, our teachers were the holders of all the information, right? Or you had to go to the library and open a book, whereas these kids now have instant access to any information they want at the touch of a button. Do you think there's a correlation there? Or do you think that, I don't know, society has just changed in the way in which people are being brought up that they are that way?
Well, I think it's both of those things, but the fact that these kids can go get answers at the palm of their hand has changed the way society is. Because back in our day, I'm not gonna say, kids think that they know. We knew we didn't know back in our day. We asked and wanted the coach to be able to tell us. Nowadays, they think they know as much as you do as a coach. So you almost have to show them that you have a little more knowledge or why the reason is that you have to do this, because they're going to question it based upon what they see on an everyday basis. And they can just go pick up their phone and get an answer. So it makes, it's all in how you look and dictate this. You can look at it as they question you, or you can look at it as they're just making you be a better person and be a better teacher and be a better motivator. I choose to go with the second one. I'm going to find a better way to get to know you. I'm going to find a better way to get to reach to you. I sound like I'm preaching now, but I feel like that's what it gets. But that's what coaching is at this point. You're becoming a leader and trying to lead them in the best way that they can be. And you have to find out what that is. And so sometimes you got to be challenged yourself as a leader to be able to lead your flock. So I think that's it.
No doubt. Let me ask this. And I'm asking more because I know Terrence is off campus and I don't know the percentage of your other coaches that are in-house versus off-campus coaches.
Okay.
But what advice do you have for coaches that are not on campus to be able to build those relationships, to know the kids better? Because 9 times out of 10, they're coming in, they're there for practice and they're going home, or maybe they're there a half hour early, half hour after. But it's a totally different deal than one of the kids being able to stop by your office and spend 30 minutes talking.
Correct. So one of the things that I offer to that is as an off-campus coach, or what the advice I would give the coaches is find somebody on campus, a teacher, some part of the faculty, some part of the staff that you can relate to be you when you can't be on campus. So that your kids have somebody that they can go talk to, and that question or whatever can be relayed to you directly. So now when you do see them for your short amount of time, you can get directly to the point of something that was asked. Now it has to be a unique situation because you don't want the kids to feel like they can't tell that person, whoever, that they don't trust that person to say, to tell them. Another thing that I would say for off-campus coaches is I know it's hard in different circumstances, but whatever you can, if you have a moment, you need to show up for different kids' events that may not be your event. So those kids have to see that you believe they're vested. One of the best things that I think we have here at Mission is our other sports support one another. When you see, like I'm going to use Terrence and Schuster. Terrence goes to every Friday football game. So his football kid that play basketball for him see him at the game. So they know that he's not really just invested in them in basketball. He's invested in them as young men. Vice versa, Coach Schuster comes to the basketball games and he makes it be known. He sits with his students and his football team and leads cheers or says it, or he does different things where we're having a team dinner in the cafe, volleyball's playing. We're coming out as a team afterwards and we're all staying, and you got to stay for a whole entire game. That's what we're going to do. And we're all going to stay in support. So these girls who come support you on Friday now see you supporting them. These kids pay attention to that. So that support, when they see that support is there on a continual basis and not just for their sport, that means something to them as well. And it is hard to try to connect to them, but it's different ways. So staying after 30 minutes to a practice to doing something that is a team bonding session that is part of practice, but not necessarily the X's and O's of practice. I think if you have a team that plays for each other and is together as a unit, they're going to be a lot more successful than those who are just playing for themselves individually. So you got to find that familyness and that oneness.
100%. And I think what you suggested right off the top is you need to show up for the other events that they are interested in participating in, be it like, hey, your point guard's in the theater in the fall. Like, you better show up to that play.
Yep.
Make sure he knows you're there, right?
Yep.
Or he's got on a track team and they got a big meet. Like, showing up earns you more social capital than you can count. And that's a great piece of advice. Thank you for sharing that. I just don't think that's something you would normally come up with on your own when you're new to a place. And that's something that anybody can take with them and I think pay immediate dividends to their relationship.
Yeah, I agree.
Follow up to something you said earlier about running the Firestone. 27 years, I think you said. What did you learn there that has transferred in a very pronounced way as you've re-entered the coaching ranks?
One of the biggest things I would say there is I think I did everything in that building at Firestone. There was a time when I would clean the toilets. There was a time when I would go back and mop the floors. There's not been anything that is done by any employee that was an employee of mine that I hadn't personally done myself. These kids nowadays, when you're asking them to lift weights, let me give you this example. When you're asking them to go lift, you get in the weight room and lift with them. That goes a long way with them. When they see you, you're going to do something. Yeah, you're a coach. You don't have to. But if we split the teams up and we got one team on two different teams on two different sides and split the coaching staff up, that losing coach should run with the team that lost. That little bit of stuff goes a long way with these kids to see that, again, it's all about, from their vantage point, they're saying how fully invested in them that you are. And that is a key thing, is for them to see the investment. I feel like I keep going back to that, but I just think that's a big thing for young coaches to see, is to see the investment that you have in these kids, and they appreciate it. Now, again, some of them tell you that right away. Some are going to tell you that in a hard-hitted way. But at some point, it does make a difference, and it reaches them and hits them in some way. And the other part about that is I dealt with people from all different fashions in the restaurant industry. And then you just had to take the time to learn about them, find out what they do best, and find out how that best helps them to contribute to the team, the work team, to make the workflow go better. And the same thing goes into coaching. If you can go through that and give every kid on your team some type of thing that they know that they are responsible for, that they do well or they succeed in. It could be the person on the bench who's just the best, the encourager on the bench who might not ever play. The guy who's the best guy in practice to get these guys ready. And if they feel like they have a role, I feel like it makes them, it's a lot better and it goes a long way. Everybody needs to feel like they have that role in the team to buy it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Both points. Number one, the idea of there's nothing in that restaurant I hadn't done. It's like those of us that have been managers collegiately or director of ops type people where you become a head coach. It's you've done everything. Like you're used to doing all that stuff yourself. So you know what to do in each of those situations, even if you still have to figure out how to perfect it. And that's the same way you described it in the restaurant. And the other piece you just said is role definition, which is one of my soapboxes. It's the cleaner you can carve out roles for your staff. As you made the comment earlier, I know what I like in my assistants. So that's what I'm going to now do, right? That's clear. And the sooner you can do that for your players, the less squeaky wheelness you have, the more people can embrace that role and become great at it. And the whole product of the team gets better when people star in their roles. So I think those are two great pieces that you just shared. Anything else that comes back to you?
No, I think I hit all the spots. Anything else you got? What you got?
Fantastic. No worries. All right, let me ask you this. Do you have a favorite failure that you lean on as you're trying to teach these kids or as you're trying to navigate, say, your new job, right? When you landed back at the school and you're director of alumni relations, I always think back to, hey, this was a transformational moment in my life when this happened. It wasn't because I was successful.
I think the biggest failure moment is to know is I don't know it all, and I'm willing to learn and continue to learn and to continue to be taught. So at no point do I not want to say if I come up short or if I haven't. You have to be able to realize everybody sees your successes. You have to be able to realize and acknowledge your failures. Hey, if there's a play where I designed a bad play or we ran the wrong thing, hey fellas, that was on me. That one wasn't on you. That was on me. We're both gonna learn from this. And when we're in this situation again, I'm gonna have a out of bounds play designed exactly to get us a back three, or I'm gonna have a defense designed exactly to stop that particular play. But I'm gonna let you know what it is. I'll give you a perfect example of that. I played when I was a player, and it helped me in coaching as well. I missed a free throw. Now, did that cost us the game? Yes and no. No, there was something else in the game that we could have done. But in my mind, it cost us the game. I spent and vowed every day that I'm not going to lose another game on the free throw line. So I went from a 60% free throw shooter to an 87% free throw shooter. That's a big difference where you see it. So in saying that now, that same little aspect is I'm going to want that to happen to my kids when they come. So we're going to be able to make free throws. We're going to be able to control the things that you can control. We're going to be able to defend you, and I'm going to be able to make a free throw. Because as my dad used to tell me, a free throw is, what is the word? Free. That's a free point, boy. If you can make 4 layups in a game and 2 free throws in a game, or 4 free throws in a game and 3 layups, you are a double point scorer. How easy is that? I ain't asking you to make no incredible things. Make a layup off of a good cut and make a free throw when they foul you, and you can be successful. And in my philosophy as a coach, I said to counter that, no matter who we are, who we're playing, we're gonna play defense. If we can be in the game and 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, we got a chance. I don't care who we play against, because at some point I'm gonna break their will. So that's a lot. Nowadays people want to kind of outscore you. I'm still an old school cat. That was my thing with Terrence this year. I, I just like to concentrate on the defense. What can I do to stop you from scoring? I can control that, and every player on my team can figure out a way to stop somebody else from scoring, no matter what ability you got.
I love that. That's funny. Okay. Let me wrap with this. And this is more of a philosophical life question. What have you most recently changed your mind on? And by that, you used to believe X and you were really dug in on it. And after further reflection or experience or whatever, I'm now over here. And here's why. It doesn't have to be sports related. It can be about whatever it is that you have now decided I am no longer subscribing to this for good reason?
Wow. Let me see. That's a doozy to come up on me to think about, but I would probably have to say, as a man who has 4 daughters, you learn a lot. Think, okay, I'll say it. Best thing for me is as a man, I always have been, I'm gonna take care of my children. I'm the man, I'm gonna take care of my kids. Now, I also raised my 4 daughters to be very independent women. They want to now take care of me and look after me. Dad, did you take this medicine? Did you take your Pepsids for your intestine before you eat this spicy food? I'm looking at it like, don't tell me what to do. I'm the daddy. But they looking at it as, I want to make sure my daddy's still around here for 20, 30, 40 more years. So for me, it's taking that aspect of, I'm not necessarily, I am the lead man, I am the boss man, but somebody else can look out and do something for me, just like I can look out and do something for them.
And that goes to your coaching and athletic experience, right? Where it takes a team, people got to play their roles. And as your children have been raised to be independent and are growing into different roles, you too, sir, are growing into different roles.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on today. Hopefully, I'm going to see you in a couple weeks. If not, I'll see you when I come down to see Terrence, but appreciate having you on.
I appreciate you.